Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give folks a couple moments to hop on, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual Step Forward, Building the Next Generation, sponsored by Salesforce. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. We will be recording this webinar and we'll share the link with all registrants after the event. All participants' microphones have been muted upon entering the meeting, and we're going to hope to stay muted so we can hear our speakers. And lastly, there is a chat feature which can be accessed from the bottom of your screen. We encourage you to post discussions, share resources, and if you have any questions to ask of the panelists, feel free to post and we'll do our very best to get to them. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Carolyn Lee, Executive Director of the Manufacturing Institute.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. It is a pleasure to do this Step Forward event. It is something I look forward to every year. Oh, okay, I want to make sure I wasn't on mute. Someone has to do that every webinar. So it's great to be here today. So for those of you who don't know, the Manufacturing Institute is the workforce development and education partner of the National Association of Manufacturers, which is the largest industrial trade association in the US. And the MI is dedicated to supporting the manufacturing workforce of today and building and growing the manufacturing workforce of tomorrow. And we do that through a variety of programs and initiatives designed to inspire, educate, and empower, with a particular focus on 4 key areas: women, our topic here today, veterans, students, and emerging workers. So among the variety of programs and platforms and initiatives that the MI runs is our Creators Wanted platform. And actually, I have the pleasure of coming to you today from Columbia, South Carolina, where we are on the Creators Wanted live tour. And this is really an overall campaign working to inspire the future of manufacturing workforce, but also change the perception of the industry. And by 2025, Creators Wanted aims to reduce the skills gap by 600,000 jobs, increase the number of students going into career and technical education by 25%. And what I think is probably most critical is improving the opinion and the perception of manufacturing among parents and students to 50%, up from 27% today. And so I had a great opportunity to participate in an event this morning at our Creators Wanted site. And we look forward to keeping the momentum going in Kentucky, Iowa, North Carolina, Texas, and many other places later this year. So you can find more at creatorswanted.org. So another one of the MI platforms is Manufacturing Day. And like Creators Wanted, it's about changing perception of manufacturing by bringing individuals, students, parents, policymakers, influencers, teachers into facilities and letting them see firsthand what modern manufacturing careers are all about. For those of us who are in the sector, we know, but unfortunately too few people understand what the opportunities are in the sector, and that's something we have to change. And one of the populations we're changing that among is veterans and the military community through our Heroes Make America initiative, where we're educating transitioning service members, military spouses, members of the Guard, Reserve, and fully separated veterans in manufacturing careers and credentials, and helping place them in manufacturing careers all across the country. And another part of the portfolio is our FAME initiative, which was originally created by Toyota. It's a FAME apprenticeship program, and it was transitioned to the MI in 2019 for us to help expand it nationwide. So now there are FAME earn and learn opportunities in 13 states and growing. And it's a great opportunity for students of all ages to enter manufacturing, gain highly in-demand skills, come out with a degree and no college debt. And over 85% of folks are hired by the company that sponsors them through the program. We've also recently expanded our work to include second chance hiring and second chance opportunities, and have the ability to tap into a portion of our population where 1 in 4 Americans have been criminally involved or involved in the criminal justice system. And that might prohibit them from having gainful employment once they return to their homes. And we are working to help companies and communities engage this potential workforce to fill those almost 900,000 open jobs we have today. But And last and not least is our STEP Women's Initiative. And specifically our programming around STEP is really aimed at how do we close the gender gap, which remains really significant in manufacturing. And a great big part of how we do that is by elevating those female leaders in the sector today and helping them pay it forward to the next generation, but also building that network, that community, that ability to learn from one another. Because all of our research and all of our practice has told us that women want to learn from other women leaders and follow in those footsteps. And that is why it's such a great pleasure for me to be with this panel today and to hear from these women who have done tremendous things in their careers and have many tremendous things left to do. And so it's one of the best parts of the STEP Women's Initiative. So increasing the number of women in manufacturing is the largest talent opportunity we have. So as you see here on the slide, we have about 2.1 million jobs in manufacturing that could go unfilled by 2030. We have 4 million jobs we need to fill. 2.1 million could go unfilled because we don't have the people with the skills. And also too few people know that this is the sector we need to that has an opportunity for them. So today in the overall labor force, we have 47% of women make up the labor force, but only about, it's a little less than 30% of women make up the manufacturing workforce. And we've seen that the pandemic has added an additional layer to this concern, where we have 70% of women who have left the labor force have said that they have no intention of returning anytime soon. And when you think about the lost opportunities, the lost benefits to the families and their own careers, that is truly a stunning fact. And as many as 1 in 4 corporate women have said they are considering downshifting their careers or leaving the workforce altogether. And that's why events like these and how we all work together to close this gap, to support one another and to bring more opportunities to fruition and building those networks and those support communities is so critical. And now, while many of our programs are aimed specifically at women, it's also, we need the men, the rest of our workforce to partner with us to sponsor the women in and support and make the changes and help lead the change that we need to see here. So we need to make sure that we're not only positioning ourselves so that young women see the opportunity and are aware of the opportunity, we also need to highlight the rapid evolution that we have in manufacturing. And, one of the things we need to do is talk more about what we can do and talk about the opportunities. And that's why this is so important and truly such fun and inspirational as well. So today we have several women leaders in our industry who will share their experiences navigating their careers in the manufacturing sector. Their insights can help provide perspective on where we've been and how we can move forward and make improvements. And our first segment features 2 women, each of whom will provide an overview of what attracted them first to the industry and any challenges and obstacles they faced along the way. So first we have Tracy Long, Vice President of Communications at ABB. So Tracy, I turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Carolyn. I appreciate it very much. As Carolyn said, I am with ABB. I am with the NEMA Motor Division. And the team asked me to kind of start by explaining how did I get into manufacturing. And I almost have to say it was almost by accident in a way. Right after college graduation, I moved to a new town with a fresh degree in hand. And my first job ended up being as a temporary for a motor manufacturing company here. And that turned out to be a permanent position in their accounting department a mere 5 weeks later. Not where I thought I would be, not what I thought I would be doing, but thankful to have a job right out of college. What I came to appreciate instantly was working for a business that made something essential and something tangible. I could walk out into the plant at any point in time and actually touch the parts. I could actually touch the motors and see them being painted and being put in boxes. And I knew that every box that shipped out the door was making a difference for someone's business or for some community. And so that was one of the things that really drew me to stay in manufacturing, was knowing that every single thing that each of us is touching today was made. Unless you've got a banana, even it was processed in some way through transportation and whatnot. But the packaging and everything that we do is manufactured. And that's just so key to how we live our lives today and the comforts that we are enjoying. So one thing I never realized about manufacturing when I was a student was that it just takes dozens of skills and roles to make the whole business succeed. From machinists to automation technicians, accountants, IT professionals, salespeople. It takes all of us to take care of the customer and to make the business a success. And so even though I started off in the accounting department, I was performing a function that allowed the folks in the plant to make their product to the very best of their ability and make us all succeed as a team. And so I knew that I was playing a critical role in manufacturing. So while I started my career with a marketing degree, it was actually my aptitude for math and logic that got me that job in the accounting department. I was given the opportunity to go back to school at night to actually get my accounting degree through a tuition reimbursement program at ABB, but I earned the opportunity to take on new roles and projects where I could add value, gain experience, and really build networks over time of people who could engage with me and collaborate with me on the next project I was on or on the next role that I took. So as a result, I've now worked for the same business for more than 30 years, in the same building all of that time, but I've had more than 10 distinct roles throughout that business in finance, investor relations, marketing, and communications throughout that time. Being in manufacturing has given me opportunities I never would have imagined. The things that I've learned how to do, the places I've traveled that I never imagined I would get to, and the people that I've gotten to meet that I never thought I'd have the chance to be with. So here's my advice to you as a new generation, or trying to draw that new generation of folks into the world of manufacturing and to help convince young girls in elementary school and junior high and high school that there is a place for you. Recognize and take advantage of your aptitude and the skill sets, regardless of what your degree says, or regardless of what you think those jobs look like. Recognize what you're good at and bring those into the table. Learn about the other parts of the business once you get there to get a really good understanding of how all the pieces work together. One of the advantages of being in finance is I understood the inside out from engineering and from sales and from supply chain, so that as I moved around, I really could take all those pieces and start to build this broader picture that really helped me in every function I went to. And don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Use your skills to try new things. Always take that chance to say yes. Somebody will help you if you don't think you know how to do it, but you will learn how to do the skills. You will learn how to do the job with the skills you have once you get there. So don't be afraid to say yes and try those new things if someone trusts you enough to give you the opportunity. Manufacturing industry is changing faster than ever before. It needs more diverse minds, like the women attending this conference today, that are willing to think forward and are willing to try new technologies and processes in order to make things better, faster, and in more productive ways. I can't wait to see how everyone on the call today becomes part of that movement, because we need you. Thank you.
Tracy, that was outstanding. I mean, just truly outstanding. And one of the things that I love is that, you know, and I think this is true to probably most people on the call, there's no one job in manufacturing. We see that all the time. It's like, well, I'm going to stand on an assembly line for 45 years and that's it. And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? And the opportunities there are just tremendous. So thank you for sharing that. And now I want to share or introduce our second speaker, Divyas, Director and Development Program and Development Program Management at Woodward. So Divya, turn it over to you.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much. And thank you, Tracy. Your speech was inspiring just listening to here. So I forgot all my notes here because I was entranced. So as Carolyn said, I'm Divyas. I'm the Director of the Development Program Management Group here at Woodward. We are a controls designer and manufacturer for industrial and aerospace turbine and engines, and I work on the aerospace side. By education, I'm an engineer. My undergrad master's is industrial, and my PhD systems engineering, which is where the aerospace piece comes in a little bit. I think, you know, the theme for today is what's the calling, right? What's the draw? And for me, it very much started as a sense of duty. From a very young age, my parents had taught us that we have this sense of duty. We have that sense of duty to our country, our community, and our family. And those same three things are what brought me from engineering into manufacturing. When you think of community, and nothing has solidified that more than the last 18 months, right? We have seen the innovation and the ability of our manufacturing companies to completely evolve and innovate. We had car manufacturers and aerospace manufacturers start making ventilators. We had distilleries and LVMH, as sad as I am that they didn't make purses, changed and turned around and started making hand sanitizers. We saw hand sanitizer production jumped up 600% in a matter of weeks. That was the evolution of manufacturing. And we had some hard times too, right? We all went through that. Some are shared that we had hard times. I'm in aerospace, I get it. But as an industry, we evolved, right? We grew. We saw so much innovation in our industry. And that sense of country, that sense of pride, what we did for each other over the last 18 months, really is that magic of manufacturing. The next sense of responsibility is community. We all know that manufacturing grows our local communities. I come from a small farm town in Illinois where there's 200 kids in the high school, and not everybody is going to go to college. And that doesn't mean that they don't get a path. Now, if my dad had his way, everybody would be engineers, but it just doesn't work that way. So we founded the Manufacturing Academy at our local high school, where we give that percentage of students that don't have a path to college a career. And that career, 90% of them, guess what? It gives them healthcare benefits. Guess what? It gives them a great living wage. And not to mention, there are those careers that are highly technical and automation and simulation and now data science and Internet of Things. And we get to do that for our local communities. And that's that sense of duty that manufacturing brings. Finally, for me, it also is a sense to my family. I have a little girl and a little boy. And I think a lot of us either grew up or are now raising children where we say, you get to be anything you want to be. You can grow up and you can be anything you want to be. But we have a responsibility to be there and show them how it's done. The things that we grew up not liking, like the temperature, like paternity leave or maternity leave, things that give our spouses and partners the ability to help us as we go through life, those decisions get made in boardrooms. And we owe ourselves the ability to stay in these careers long enough to reach those rooms to make those decisions. So I can look at my 7-year-old and say, I promised you that you could be anything that you wanted to be, so let me show you how. I came for the duty to my country and my community and my family, but I stay for a duty to myself. And this industry has so many opportunities. What started in the 90s as process, right? We all wanted to be process. Manufacturing was right there and we innovated. I came for strength and stability and security. But the irony is that that stability comes from innovation. We always know, no matter what the environment, manufacturing is going to change to be there. We moved from process to early 2000. Everything was productivity and efficiency, right? Work harder, not smarter, the old adage. And now it's about digital transformation, simulation, Internet of Things, data science, cybersecurity. What does all that look like? And guess what? We're going to innovate again. And in that innovation comes opportunity. And that's the duty to ourselves. How do we do that? We all, right? We want to do these great things. We get the need why. So my advice to you, and I've told you to lean in, and I will tell every woman that I know to lean in to get to make those decisions. But you also need to lean on. I come from a dual professional, marriage. My husband works as well. He's an orthopedic surgeon. We call him the trophy husband. But you got to lean on. You have to find those things in your day that are non-value added and get help. And maybe you rotate dinner with a couple of friends, or you ask your spouse or partner or significant other or children to help take on that workload that we know is 5 times greater for women than it is for men in the same roles, so that we don't spend 5 extra hours on third shift, as we call it, after we work all day, doing housework that just feels like it's our duty. So lean in, but lean on. And I promise you, with the growth and innovation, you will grow. So I came for the duty and I came for the stability, but I stay for the magic of manufacturing. And I hope you all see it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya. Wow. That literally chills people. I was at a women-owned business for the Creators Wanted event this morning, and we were talking to two young women in the sector yesterday afternoon. We were getting ready, and they said to us, we want to learn from you. What do you do? And we talked about these things. And Lou Kennedy, who's the owner and CEO of Nephron Pharmaceuticals, where we're having the event, said, and a STEP honoree and a STEP alumni. And she said, you know what? We have to stop competing with each other. We need to lift each other up. And that is so key to how women can succeed and continue to grow in the sector. And so thank you both for your very moving and passionate, sharing with us this afternoon. And so now I'm thrilled to shift the focus a little bit here. And so glad that we have 3 women leaders with us now to talk about what manufacturers can be doing now to help position our own industry. First, we have Cindy Bolt, Senior Vice President of Manufacturing, Automotive, and Energy Industries at Salesforce. And Cindy has been a tremendous partner to Step Ahead and to Creators Wanted. So Cindy, so glad to see you here. We also have with us Denise Rutherford, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at 3M, a company all about innovation, and the Step Vice Chair right now. So Denise, thank you so much for being here with us. And we have Summer Moulter, an Ecolab plant manager in Garland, Texas, and one of this year's very own Step Ahead honorees. So ladies, it is wonderful to be here with you all. And in the spirit of all that we just heard, I'm curious, what attracted each of you to the industry and the work you do on behalf of the industry? So Cindy, let's start with you.
Sure, and I'm very mindful of, I'm coming from being in the technology industry, but focused on manufacturing as opposed to some of you who just told your stories. But what attracted me, and I was so inspired by both Tracy and Divyas' message, because anybody read this book, Brené Brown, Dare to Lead? And you were talking about leaning in, and what I was thinking about is how to dare to be brave. So what attracted to me to manufacturing was the opportunity back in 1999 to take on my first regional management position. It was a region that nobody wanted and many had failed. It was the steel belt industry. And so think of all the steel industries from Pittsburgh on through Ohio, all of those companies, nobody wanted to take it on as a regional manager. So I dared to take a risk and dared to be brave. And that's my first entree into manufacturing industry. And short story, we did very well. Some of the team members that were on my team back then some of them are still on my team now or are still in touch now. We built really great relationships. And I think that's something that comes out in the manufacturing industry as a whole, is that people are pretty straightforward. They call it the way it is, which I love. Being a New Yorker myself, you just know where you stand, good or bad. And I think when you dare to be brave, you take a risk, because when you take a risk, you learn so much, and then you have a voice. Then you have a voice and you can have a seat at the table. I think those were the lessons that I learned by doing that way back then. And it just sort of progressed from there to be able to then move to continue to lead in the industry on the technology side, but lean in, as you were just sharing, on an industry that hadn't been focused on. So over the years, really focusing on how can we bring technology thinking and sort of the forward thinking that comes from technology into the manufacturing industry. What's interesting when you showed your statistics is that the technology industry is a little bit behind manufacturing about women in leadership roles. So I think I have a lot to learn from today as well.
Yeah, it is really interesting when you compare the industries. And I'd like to think of you as a manufacturer. You manufacture different, you're manufacturing code, but you're enabling the world. So we appreciate that. And I know high on the capabilities of every job description we're writing these days is Salesforce, knowledge, experience. So thank you for that, Cindy. So Summer, what brought you in to the industry originally?
So actually, originally, I'm a United States Army veteran. And when I went to transition out of the military in 2004, I actually didn't want to join manufacturing. I went through a transition company and I ended up taking a job in procurement. About a year later, I followed my husband to upstate South Carolina. And to make sure I could stay with him, because he had followed me to Florida, hated it, I applied to Michelin Tire Corporation. And they called me, and the head of recruiting was a West Point graduate, as am I. And he said, I know how smart you are. You're good at math. Do you want to join supply chain at corporate or be an industrial engineer? I'm an American politics major with a minor in systems engineering. And I said, I guess I'll take the plant. So I was very hesitant. And I was a little bit worried. Now, I'd been in a male-dominated field, so that didn't bother me. I wasn't really, I just didn't know it because no one in my family had worked in manufacturing. So I joined the company and I immediately fell in love with industrial engineering. I went on a quest to see, do I want to stay in manufacturing or leave? And I discovered myself. And so I love pace. I love developing people, and I love solutions and making decisions at the right level. And so once I realized that's what I love, I am hooked. You cannot get me out of manufacturing. I absolutely love it now. And now I'm an advocate. And I try and like share how fun it is and how exciting. And it really, we're in the people business. We just happen to make widgets.
Exactly. Exactly. And Denise, tell us about how you began, and you've had quite a career, and in 3M, you get to do so many things. So what brought you in to start?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Right. I joined 3M as a research chemist. So I had my PhD in chemistry and came to 3M because as I was interviewing various companies, I was really impressed with innovation. You highlighted innovation earlier, Carolyn, but also just all of the different products that we manufacture. And I grew up in a manufacturing household, but a blue collar manufacturing household. My dad worked on a plant floor in a toy company. And so I was used to seeing how, things were made. He would take us into the plant and such. So I was really fascinated to join a company that makes so many different things, and really honored to be able to participate with manufacturing in developing some of those products. So as a chemist, I had a variety of opportunities in multiple different laboratories, working on tape products or products for electronics. There's a lot of 3M product in mobile handheld devices, for instance, and many of you might know 3M from whatever lens. We have consumer products like Scotch tape and Post-it notes. And before COVID-19, many of you might not have known, we do a lot of work for workforce protection, PPE. We manufacture N95 respirators. Quite well known at this point that we went from about 500 million a year. That was more than enough to, in terms of the demand we would see, to 2.5 billion in scaling that up. And that is, as Divyas said, the magic of manufacturing, because being able to do that with the army of engineers and staff and teams that we put in place, and additional resourcing and funding, it was outstanding work by many folks at our company to be able to rise to the occasion and help to respond to this pandemic. Healthcare workers needed those respirators very, very desperately. We scaled up as quickly as we could, and really proud of the role that 3M played as a major manufacturer and market leader in that particular sector. We've all benefited from having that expertise and from being able to partner in different ways with other companies. We went externally and expanded our innovation capability and thinking by partnering with Ford and taught them how to make the powered air purifying respirators. So all of that was that's all part of, now we've seen that recently, but 3M has always been like that, innovative, constantly thinking about different ways to manufacture our 55,000 products. And that's what attracted me, is there was so much to do here, so many different kinds of opportunities, and the people, we come and we stay. I've been here 32 years, many different assignments, and it's a wonderful culture where people can just find their way through, and many of us stay technical. More than half of my career has been technical, or find something else along the way too. I've got many friends who have always been technical or in manufacturing, and they so enjoy the work they do because they get to make stuff, and they make stuff that really matters and helps people improve their lives.
Absolutely. And I have to say, Denise, the way 3M and so many manufacturers, our biopharma companies, our PPE companies, Ecolab, also, coming to the rescue with so much in the pandemic response. It was a terrible time. It is still a terrible time in many places, and as people battled pandemic, and so many people have lost loved ones. But it was so inspiring to see how manufacturing, I came to manufacturing through my father and grandfather, right? I think the first words I remember my grandfather saying was arsenal of democracy. I find a way to work that into almost everything I talk about. And we turned into the arsenal of healthcare, and truly manufacturing saved the world, to get through COVID these last 2 years. And if there were ever a way to make manufacturing more front and center and more relatable to people, I don't know what could have done it. I wish we could have done it a better way than COVID, for sure. But if there's going to be a silver lining, to have people understand that it was that ability, right, to rise, to increase from 500, what'd you say, 500 million?
500 million to 2.5 billion.
2.5 billion. For a minute I had to count my zeros, because it's just a tremendous. So Denise, if there's one thing, that you pinpoint, you had to pick one, what is the thing that kept you at 3M for your entire career?
It's the opportunity to find my way, to explore what I'm interested in doing. And I do this when I coach and mentor others, Carolyn. I say, the thing is that we all have to find our value proposition for the company where we choose to work. And that value proposition is what excites you about coming to work every day. And for me, it's evolved from being in the labs to being in Six Sigma to, again, going back to R&D to a business leader. And as I've navigated that, I've had tremendous support from people in the organization to be a coach, a mentor, both men and women, who have inspired me by how they've navigated a career path and have helped me find new opportunities so that I can grow personally, and then also find ways to give back to my community. I think that's one thing as women leaders we find important. Divya talked about this, is that, for us, how we participate matters, because we want to make a difference, a positive difference. And we want to do that for our families. We want to do that for our communities. So one of my platforms that I love to go out and talk about is how STEM education as a background is tremendous training in life. No matter how you choose to use it, it is a tremendous background, because you learn so many good skills that help you be a problem solver. And it helps to build a team culture, because each of us understand, like me as a chemist, I don't get a product out the door without, partnering with product engineering, manufacturing, marketing, sales, all of these functions having to be part of a team, and only one cog in the wheel. But every cog is important. And that is something that's really core to our culture, and that I've really enjoyed in every one of my assignments here at 3M.
It's all about the people, right? We make amazing things. Personally, I'm always amazed about the machines that we use to make the amazing things. That always just fascinates me. But I think it goes to Tracey's point from earlier, right? It's everything. It is the back office, it is the finance and accounting, it is the sales and the communications. It's all of it. It truly takes a village to get a product out. So summer research has shown that women need female mentors and male sponsors. What has been your experience of mentorship throughout your career?
So I wish I would have this really inspiring story about having really good female mentors. Unfortunately, I don't. But the good lesson we can learn from that is that, my companies have tried to put me together with female mentors, both at Ecolab and previous companies. And both of those have not been successful. And I believe it's because the root cause was that they didn't truly learn me and analyze my needs, of my strengths and my opportunities, and then partner with someone who would challenge me and who would have my best intention in mind. It was always more, one of the female mentors they put me with was very disconnected. She didn't understand manufacturing, very soft lady. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in my experience at that moment, I needed to be leaning into being firm and finding my voice and my power within manufacturing at that time as a production team leader. And then the other one was too firm. She decided that she needed to be a bulldog in a man's world and try and prove herself and be overly competitive. And that really didn't speak to me. I didn't want to be fake. I wanted to be me. And so I've ended up seeking out my own mentors and my own people that I feel can raise my game and I value genuineness very much so. And honesty. I think that both of the previous speakers had talked about that. And so I ended up finding people that I clicked with, and now that's been both men and women that have taken me to that next level and told me, how to adjust this or lean on that strength, be yourself. Because sometimes our pendulum can swing so back and forth as you're trying to find who you really are. Kind of like Lena, and there's all this bias. So how do you find you and be you?
Right.
So I would say if you're going to be partnering people with a mentee and a mentor relationship, really analyze the mentee and pick the right mentor, because it can have a negative experience otherwise. And also for those who want a mentor or a sponsor, don't be afraid to have contact meetings with people and actually find the courage to speak up or meet someone at that networking party. Don't be afraid to be your own advocate to create your own lane.
Absolutely. I like that, finding your own voice. I mean, that's such a important piece of this, right? And the right people at the right time being part of that. So now, Cindy, you come from a background centered on technology solutions. And how have you seen technology shape the manufacturing industry, particularly in terms of creating jobs that may not traditionally be considered manufacturing roles? And then where do you see that as being an opportunity for our sector?
Over the last few years, manufacturing has been one of the first to start leveraging technology, whether it's in telematics or robotics or whatever on the floor, plant floors or whatever. But I think what has happened in the last year and a half with the push for the digital engagement is more emphasis on how do you leverage digital engagement with whether it's your employees, your partners and suppliers, or your customers. And so because of that, I think it actually fast forwards the skills and that are needed to do that. And so putting more, I can't remember who spoke about the, having a role in the marketing department, but putting more emphasis on how you market your brand matters now, being more, because it's are you socially responsible as a company and all of that. So I think that makes a difference. Now leveraging the data that you're getting off of all the various pieces of equipment that are being manufactured and now being able to use it, not only to put it back into the development side on the R&D side, but how do you now observe how your customers are using that data to be able to help them, use the product better or guide them or enable them and all of that. So the emphasis around that digital and data, I think, has now brought technology more in the forefront. And all the conversations I'm having with executives like are on this call today is how can we do it better? And so then you start pulling skills like, Divya, I feel like we've met before. I don't know if this was on an MIT call that we had, but there was an executive from the A&D space that talked about how they recruited somebody out of the online retail space, clothing retail space, brought them into the A&D world and said, help us make our aftermarket parts more accessible online. So taking the skills that are very socially readily available to the next generation and taking that and bringing it into the manufacturing world, I think is riveting and fun. And I think that's the story we need to tell more. And that's where I think technology is starting to make a bigger impact and also will make a difference. Those that accept it quicker, and a lot of the companies that are represented here to be able to, pivot in a pandemic are those that are going to continue to be able to do that and shape, the next generation of their company. And I think that's where technology is really making an impact on manufacturing. And I think it's really exciting because it opens up career opportunities. Whether it's
I mean, when you
analytics, marketing, have at it, commerce. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just like, think about a world where it was fax machines and, wall phones, right? If we had to go through I know we would have figured it out in one way or another. 3M would have made more masks and Ecolab would have made more sanitizer. But like, if you think about how would we have made it through remote? And, one question that's coming from the audience I'm going to go to in a second is about, flexible workplace and, not a possibility without the technology enablement that we have to be remote and see what's happening on the floor because of 4.0. To keep then the people who don't have to be on the floor separate from those who do, to keep both sides safe because we had the ability to social distance. I mean, when you think about what the pandemic response would have been without our technology solutions and the integration of the technology sector into manufacturing, like it's terrifying to think of that because if you were sitting there waiting for the fax machine to have spit out where the masks are and when they're coming, and Denise, as you guys were looking for the elastic for the, and you're waiting for the fax machine to come through. I mean, it's kind of mind boggling. So one of the questions that came in, I'm dating myself by talking about fax machines. There are young women on the phone here on this call today who don't know what those are. You can Google it and go to YouTube and find that out. So one of the questions that came in was about whether or not any of you have any creative ideas about how we can improve or lighten the burden on caregivers, especially single parents, caregivers. There's a lot of people in the sandwich generation, particularly now, caring for older and younger folks in your family. How can we, as a sector, what works? How do we highlight better practices? I know it's something we focus on at the MI and share a lot of, but what ideas do you have, ladies, about how we can lessen that burden to keep and to bring more women into manufacturing? It's like, I started with an easy one.
Yeah, well, I can start. I can jump in. So, Carolyn, one of the things we've launched at 3M is a new way of working more flexibly, and we're exploring how this goes all the way to the production floor. It's called Work Your Way, and I think many companies are adapting in this new environment because, as we all know, we can, in non-production, which also supports manufacturing, by the way, work remotely. We learned that when everybody went home in the middle of March, and many of us are still working from home, as you can see. So Work Your Way for us is a new way that's based on trust. We know our employees are extremely productive at home. In fact, we worry a little bit about that blend between work and home, and we've got to put down some more boundaries on the end of the day and things. We've heard from some of our employees, some of our managers have allowed those days to just go on, start earlier, go later. So we're rededicating ourselves to there has to be a separation between work and home, but it's based on trust. We will work productively at home, and the management and employees work together and trust. The second is virtual first works for us. We know that we can work virtually. But then we also know that it helps to come in at certain times when we call the moments that matter to be in person. If it's for a critical path mapping, if it's for some strategic planning, some team building, there are moments when it really is much better to be in person together because we have a culture of connectedness and we sense of community within the organization. And really the last thing that really helps us with this is our performance is all measured on outcomes. We have team objectives, we have individual objectives, we have business objectives. And as long as we know what all of those are and we're all contributing towards those, then that's how we'll be judged and how we'll be evaluated and how our careers will be advanced. Now, to make all that work, it takes a lot of support, right? It takes support for the IT set up at home. It takes support for not only where you're working, but when you're working. And I think that gets back to your question, Carolyn. For those who are caregivers, either for young adults or children, or for elderly parents, when you work is also a degree of flexibility that we can now afford our staff in having that capability of working whenever and wherever, as long as it's within the team norms. And we're establishing new norms in our working groups. Not every manager might think that that's possible, but they're working through it. They're working with their teams. And we've got folks that are continuing to work remotely. We've got people that'll come back because they want access to the equipment. They want to be on site, but the most of us will be hybrid. So how we're going about it is driving a different thought process, a different HR approach, embracing it fully from top down all the way to the factory floor, and then thinking through how we will work so differently. Because as you said, Carolyn, technology allows us to do that. We should embrace it now and educate all of ourselves because the next generation is going to expect this even more. So we have to get ready for them to come because they will have lived through all of this with very different lived experiences, and we have to be ready. Absolutely. And manufacturing is a piece of that. You said that too, is that, we, because of automation, because of technology, we don't need people doing the same jobs. Manufacturing is very, very different today. It's high tech. We could not have scaled from the number I gave you, 500 million to 2.5 billion without technology, without automation. And those skills, those are STEM skills that men and women should be able to embrace and really enjoy a great career in manufacturing.
Absolutely. I mean, the digital natives, it's a thing. I remember my oldest was like 3 and asked me to, was motioning for me to lift her up so she could swipe the TV screen. She thought it was like an iPad, and my kids didn't even use that much technology. She thought she could swipe it and move on. It was a commercial. It's very disturbing to the younger generation. They don't see such things. And it's, you know, it's crazy because they natively interact with, and to come on a floor and see that that is how we control things too is truly amazing. So Cindy, you work with a variety of companies. You have a big market segment, you know, big sectors that you're working with. You know, as you've been through that, and, you know, thoughts on how we can do a better job of recruiting women in. You know, you have a couple of different perspectives working as a partner to so many companies. How can we do a better job recruiting young women in?
I think it goes back to how you frame up the opportunities. And this, I think Denise touched on a little bit in terms of various programs that you're putting in place to now recruit, not only to maintain and retrain, in some cases, some of the existing employees to accommodate now to the, I think, the changing needs, because we've all learned something different this last, you know, during these last several months in the pandemic. So now their needs, whether it's on the plant floor or in an office, are different in terms of work hours and those sort of things. That's the same thing for the next generation. You know, retention is an issue. I just lost somebody that was in the earlier generation, less than 30 years old, because she just wanted to go to another city, or she just wanted to try something new. So I think it's really important in terms of how you frame up the job opportunity and how you're really flexible, because most, as Denise just pointed out, get ready for the next generation. Most don't want to be going into an office. In fact, they want to work wherever they wanted. I don't know how many of you have had people that went off to Hawaii and other places during the pandemic because they could get really cheap flights and really cheap R&B places, and they could work from wherever they wanted to. And that is a little bit used in technology world, not so much, I think, in manufacturing. And I think if we start reframing the job opportunities, whether it's in marketing or commerce or the business analytics or, you know, the engineering roles that show that you can do it remotely, part of it, and it's flexible, and there's programs around it, I think you're going to attract those that are in competition for jobs in the technology space. I mean, we should be going after the same skill set, the same opportunities to recruit folks. So think probably more like a forward-thinking technology company, whether it's Salesforce or any of the others out there, and what are the programs that we offer, whether it's job flexibilities, whether it's cool programs, resources, discounts at, you know, health facilities, things that focus on their life quality, because then they'll want to stay with a company that cares about them, cares about obviously the world, you know, that has a sustainability, that they want to work for a company that does good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Summer, I saw a brief flash of a chat comment, I think, from you. Coming from the perspective of plant floor, we spent a ton of time over the last 18 months talking about the divide between production and headquarters, and not the divide, but kind of a widening gap, if you will, because you can have more flexibility in the headquarters, and on the floor, you've got to be on the floor. So, you know, do you want to talk more about that? And also, you know, innovative things that can be done to help, particularly ease the gender gap when it comes to, you know, you've got to fill your shift. You've got to make sure that you have everybody you need and production is going. Like, how do we balance that?
So I'll touch for a moment, but then I would probably turn it over to Denise to say, what did 3M do? Because we haven't been as innovative with regards to the shop floor. So I would say that the things that we've tried to do is a really good benefits program with a good quantity of personal time. And allowing to those people to take that time, because we do have a good amount of people that are within that gap. They have kids and they have aging parents. And so we really respect that and try and be human about that, while still trying to maintain, you know, the proper collective bargaining agreement, because we are a union facility. So you strike that balance of being human, but still being, you know, equitable and fair treatment. So we do that through our benefits. With regards to the gender gap, what I found that can be very successful is making sure that we support women when they're here. As an example, we have some very new production team leaders that are in their early 20s, and it's a more difficult environment for them. And so giving them that safe space to come in my office and have a cry if they want to. You know, some are emotional, some are not. Everyone's diverse and different. And so just making sure that we protect them and doing it in an environment where
anyone that can't hear Summer talking?
Yeah, Summer, I think we just lost your audio. I thought it was me for a moment. Here.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. It was, oh, I'm getting an unstable internet connection. Everything's Wi-Fi here, so I need more technology.
We need more juice. We need more juice.
Yes, but I would turn it over to Denise at this point, since I'm cutting in and out anyway, to see if she had anything more to share about that shop floor experience.
Yeah, thanks, Summer. So hopefully I have those same problems once in a while with the internet, and it's all Wi-Fi, right? So what do you do?
Yep, it is.
Yeah, see, the thing I just put some stuff in the chat, very much aligned with what you just shared, is that it is harder when you need staff out on the plant floor making stuff, right? So, but what we do see is, having family programs that support families, offering that degree of flexibility, time off when we can. But like many of you on the phone, we are seeing, it's not as easy because it's we're running a little short staffed, this great exodus of women, but also workers in general. We're just feeling that pressure in some of our small towns, honestly. So I think the work we're doing to encourage more people to come in manufacturing, having manufacturing academies, we have some of those, and in partnership with community organizations. And so everything we can do to help our communities understand manufacturing jobs are great jobs. They're high-tech jobs these days. They're not the dirty, dark factories of Hollywood movies. They're actually really, really phenomenal jobs for companies that provide benefits and all kinds of other resources. So we're doing some marketing on that, and thank you for NAM and the Manufacturing Institute for the work that you do in this regard as well. I think it's super critical that we get out there and pull people to us. But again, I'll go back to the beginning of the question. It is harder for the manufacturing floor to have that flexibility. But as we've done with our non-production staff, we'll continue to query our employees and have them help us understand how to make it possible.
Absolutely. It's not like the olden days of manufacturing. As I said, my father and grandfather, just hang a sign and people will come. We have 900,000 open jobs right now. And, manufacturers, we tend to be a little humble. We don't always tell our story. We just figure our products, our work will stand for itself. We have to tell our story. We got to change that perception. So I know we're nearing the end of the hour. I could do this all day. I'm sure most everybody who's listening to you all feel the same way. But one final question for you each. This is an impossible question, so I'm glad I get to ask it and not have to answer it. But if you were able to go back and give advice to yourself as you were entering the industry, what would you say? I'll let you marinate on that for a second. And now, who wants to go first? Cindy, you want to go first?
I cracked, I smiled. When I was reading the question earlier and I was really having a heartfelt, I thought about the first job I ever had, which was with, actually not in technology, it was with the General Accounting Office. I'm really dating myself, as a junior economist. And my first assignment was to go invest funding for a program at a Navy yard. And I was incredibly overwhelmed, scared, intimidated, as you can imagine, because everybody I interviewed was not, there was not one female I interviewed. And of course, they wanted to keep their money. And at that time, the GAO wanted to right size their budget. And if I think about the moment I felt there all the way to now, it is, I go back to the same thing: dare to be brave, dare to take risks. Because the risks will teach you so much. Even if you fail, you learn so much that'll give you the strength and confidence. So if there's one thing I wish I had, was probably a little bit more self-confidence back then, because I think we can all be our worst enemies at times. And that's where the mentors can come in. And I do think, Summer, you're like spot on. Go find the mentor and the sponsor that fits you as opposed to what gender they are. Because if they're a good person that fits you, they will understand how to guide you. And I think that's the lesson I learned is definitely have more confidence and look for, those mentors and sponsors that can help you build that confidence as you continue to learn, and then to learn to know how to pass it on. There's one thing I wanted to say when we were talking about mentorship that I think is a lesson that I've learned this last year, and maybe some of you are doing it, is the concept of the reverse mentoring, because I think that also keeps us really sharp in learning the next generation, the needs, that what the people we're hiring, what do they want, is to really go after the reverse mentoring type program. And it also keeps us young at heart.
I love it. I love it. Yes. Summer.
Yeah, so I wrote my answer too when I read this. And I guess I would have two things for myself. My natural strengths, my number one is competition, and then it's communication and so on. And so I've never been competitive with women. I've been competitive with everyone. I always wanted to be number one. And so even at my 7th grade birthday party, I would not play pin the tail on the donkey because there was too much not under my control and I couldn't guarantee a win. Like, that's a little bit excessive. So I would go back and tell myself, stop being so competitive, find perspective, and just, it's not about winning all the time. I didn't get that until my 30s. Gosh, that's a long time. And my parents supported my competition, and high school did, and the Army did, and West Point did. So everybody kept reinforcing this kind of strength taken to an extreme. So I wish I could go back. The second thing would be, because I've always believed in myself. Like, I do believe I can do anything. My grandma always told me that. And I talked about that at her funeral. But I would say, find your self-confidence. You know, I allowed societal noise to dictate for a long time my definition of success, and what a mistake that was. And even now, it's even worse for girls. You know, a Facebook whistleblower said that they know what gets teenagers hooked because they don't have rational control over their, you know, activity on social media. You know, if we hope to save the next generation, we need to take away cell phones. We need to take away the Instagram likes and all of that stuff, because we need women and girls who can believe in themselves and find their worth from inside and get that self-esteem. I didn't truly become myself until my late 30s. And what a pity that wisdom of loving myself is wasted. And I didn't have that in my younger years.
That's tremendous points. And as a mom with 2 young daughters, tremendous points. Thank you. And Denise, our STEP vice chair and such a great partner. Denise, we've all learned so much from you during this year working with you. What is your advice to yourself as you look back, if you could go back?
Oh my goodness, it's very similar to what Cindy and Summer have shared. And thank you so much for sharing your comments, and thank you to our speakers as well. See, you know, the couple of things I thought of, one is ignore the little voice in your head. You know, that little voice that tells you you're not good enough, you don't know enough. It goes back to that confidence piece that Cindy was talking about, that imposter syndrome that is something that just happens to women for some reason. Ignore that voice. You are good enough. You can do it, which feeds into the next one about that Summer just highlighted. You know, you can do anything, but you can't do everything, right? So that's my qualifier that I often give to teams, is that, and to myself, is that I can do anything, but I can't do everything. I have to prioritize. I have to let go of things like photo albums and the perfect dinner, and just, you know, things that just are not going to get done because I just simply don't have time. And the third thing I would offer is give back sooner. You know, realize the importance of that everybody has touched on. We have to find the next generation of girls and young women that want to come in and have these jobs and help keep saving the world. And the sooner we can start, you know, realizing that we're good enough to already give back at every stage of our career. Everyone who's just got a little passion about STEM needs to find somebody just a bit younger and pass it on, right? Just keep the chain going, because that's the only way we're going to win this and get to full equity for women in manufacturing.
Honestly, I don't even run anymore, but it makes me I feel like, you know, Rocky, I got to go up the stairs and do the dance at the end, because you all have inspired me. And I think probably the whole rest of the audience feels the same, but really tremendous. Thank you for spending this hour with us. You know, the work that we can do, the way to lift each other up just by coming together and having these conversations, it's so meaningful. And I so appreciate, I know the whole team, we so appreciate all of you taking your time to share with us, but also to listen. And so if everyone can turn their camera on quickly and give a great round of applause to our speakers. It's just truly, truly wonderful. And so we look forward to more of these. Thank you all for your participation and sponsorship and partnership here. And you can get more information on the STEP community. And I know that the STEP team who's here at the MI is happy to answer questions at any time. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you.